Ms. Guadaragan, the gentlewoman from American Samoa.
Talofa lava. Thank you, Chairman Gosser and Ranking Member Stansberry, for allowing me to participate in today's hearing. Fishermen, the Western Pacific Regional Fishery Management Council, or WESPAC, over 1,000 Star-Kissed Samoa cannery workers, myself, our Governor of American Samoa, and most other local officials representing ours and other Pacific territories are all pushing back against NOAA's plans for an expanded marine sanctuary around the Primnim, or Pacific Remote Islands Marine National Monument. With unanimous consent, I would like to submit the testimony from Governor Lemanu on the effect that a closure of fishing area would have on American Samoa. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To entertain further fishing restrictions and say that it will not put further jobs at risk in American Samoa is not credible. That being said, we do appreciate all the hard work NOAA does in the Pacific, and my thoughts are with the crew of the Rainier, as I know surviving a fire can be a traumatic experience, and I hope they get a lot of R&R in my home district of American Samoa. Secretary Bavishi, what science was used to conclude that the sanctuary would benefit tunas and other highly migratory species by closing commercial fisheries from 50 out to 200 miles?
Thank you, Congresswoman Radowagen, for the question. We just actually held a workshop in American Samoa last week and co-chaired it with the government of American Samoa, and we were really thankful for that partnership. One thing that we stated at the workshop that I want to state for the record today is that we have not made any decisions regarding fishing regulations in the proposed sanctuary. What we communicated at the workshop is that where we are in the process is that we're developing alternatives that will be available for public comment with the draft environmental impact statement, which we plan to release in the spring of next year. Those alternatives will consider both regulatory actions, but also different options for boundaries of the sanctuary. And no decision has been made right now about prohibition of commercial fishing.
Can you elaborate on what data did NOAA use to evaluate the economic impacts on the U.S. tuna per seine fishery and the economy of American Samoa before proposing the complete prohibition on commercial fishing in the sanctuary?
Again, let me just clarify that we have not proposed the complete prohibition of fishing in the sanctuary. We are in a process of developing alternatives.
Thank you. My time is short. And lastly, did NOAA consider the issues of equity and environmental justice as outlined in various White House executive orders when assessing the potential impact of the sanctuary on American Samoa?
Absolutely. Environmental justice is of utmost importance to NOAA and to the sanctuary process, and that's why the sanctuary process is so highly participatory. We take into account public input at every step of the process. We have held a 45-day scoping period where we received more than 50,000 comments, held 7 in-person workshops across the region, as well as 2 virtual scoping sessions. And we also held a workshop, as I mentioned before, in American Samoa last week to continue to hear the concerns of stakeholders and community. We will continue to emphasize public input across the entire process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. I may have additional questions that I will submit for the
American
record.
Samoa is recognized for her 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see. Before I start, and speaking as a proud Samoan and native Hawaiian as well, I wanted to, how do we do this? I wanted to show just how much the Biden administration is taking from native Samoans and other indigenous people in the Pacific Islands in expanding the Primnim, or the Pacific Remote Island Marine National Monument. We will lose nearly all U.S. EEZs in the Pacific. And at this critical time, with China gaining a real serious foothold in this region, the United States is going to quickly become nothing more than a passive bystander in the world's largest fishery. Now, in the previous panel, Secretary Bavishi mentioned that they are working with the governors of the Northern Marianas, Guam, and American Samoa, which is really very good. I just wanted to add that I believe these three governors are united in being against the expansion. And interestingly enough, it is a very bipartisan effort. Two of those governors are Democrats, and one governor is a Republican. So I believe we do have a letter from all of them as well. But I'd like to applaud NOAA's efforts towards conservation and share the desire to protect and preserve our nation's marine environment and natural resources, especially in the Pacific region. American Samoa is my home, after all. The cannery has been the economic foundation of the island for over half a century. Further fishing restraints will topple the industry, and we are a one-industry economy. And along with that toppling of the industry, our economy goes down the drain, period. And we have the best fisheries management in the world. We can find reasonable accommodations to serve the needs of conservation and food security, to protect our kids' school lunch program, our military rations, and our local American Samoan community, which depends on our tuna exports. Mr. Gibbons-Fly, your written testimony talks about the cumulative effects of multiple actions on the industry and the economy of American Samoa. Can you provide some specific examples of such impacts?
Certainly. Thank you very much for the question. Well, with respect to the current national marine monuments, they started out at 50 miles around most of the islands, and they were expanded to 200 miles in many of the islands, and now there's a proposal to expand the rest of those out to 200 miles. And I did note the comment from the Assistant Secretary that NOAA has made no decision about commercial fishing within the monument. But everything I've read and everything I've heard on this suggests extremely strongly that that is the intention of this administration, to extend those boundaries out. Now, in terms of the cumulative impacts, on the map behind you, that southernmost red area represents Jarvis Island, which was closed in its entirety in 2014 with the expansion of the national monument in that region. That historically had been one of the richest fishing grounds for the tuna purse seine fleet, and we've now been excluded completely from that area. You'll note that it's immediately adjacent to the EEZ of Kiribati. Kiribati licenses up to 15 Chinese large purse seine vessels that can fish right across that line from where the U.S. fleet is prohibited from fishing. So any of the conservation benefits that accumulate as a result of no fishing by the U.S. fleet, if that fish migrates across the line to Kiribati, it's China that catches that fish. It's not U.S. vessels. Furthermore, with respect to the cumulative impacts, I know that with respect to the Hawaii longline fleet, the cumulative effect of the closure of the expansion of both the Northwest Hawaiian Islands Monument and the Pacific Islands Monument resulted in a loss of their historical fishing grounds that accounted for approximately 22% of their catch. That's just with respect to the monuments. Then we have the increasingly strict regulatory environment, both domestic and international. We can't fish on fish aggregating devices for 3 months out of the year. We can't fish on fish aggregating devices on the high seas for another 2 months. It's as if there's a ratchet that's being cranked, and it only goes one way. It only gets tighter and tighter and tighter. It never goes back. It never goes back the other way. And so it's these, and each one of these actions is justified, as I said, in both my written and oral testimony. Well, the impact will be minimal. Crank the ratchet. The impact will be minimal. Crank the ratchet. But the cumulative effect is it's killing us. It really is killing us.